For the Finance News Network, I'm James Lush. Joining me today from Los Cerros is Managing Director Jason Stirbinskis. Jason, first of all, can you start with a little bit of background about the company?
Sure. Los Cerros Limited has about 100,000 hectares in the gold-rich Mid-Cauca porphyry belt of Colombia. It formed through the merger of Andes Resources Limited, which is an unlisted company that I was the managing director of, only 80 shareholders, the major shareholder being Sandfire Resources, and we merged with Metminco, which is a listed company on the ASX and holds a portfolio of assets below us in Colombia. So that 100,000 hectares is divided into two parcels. We have the Andes parcel, as the name would suggest, it's in the Andes region, and mainly undeveloped projects, early stage projects. And we have the Metminco portfolio, which is called the Quinchilla project, and as the name suggests, it's in Quinchilla, and that's a smaller parcel of projects, but far more advanced, including a mineral reserve at Miraflores of about 500,000 ounces.
And before we talk about some of those projects, let's talk about why you changed your name.
The merger with Metminco and Andes happened last year, and the company now is a completely new company, so rebranding the company to reflect that re-energising, rejuvenation of the company is appropriate. We chose the name Los Cerros because it means the hills, and both projects are in the Andes Mountains. And also the local village, Quinchilla, is also known as the village of the hills or the village of Los Cerros, so there's a local relevance as well.
And what's it like working in Colombia?
I get this question a lot. It's a lot of history in Colombia, obviously, and a lot of it not all that great. But that's the history. Colombia at the moment is a very easy place to work. About 4 years ago, there was a peace agreement signed with the FARC. And ever since then, the risk profile of the country has been improving greatly. So now our colleagues in the area are all blue chips and mid-tiers. So we have Newmont, Newcrest, and Anglo Gold Ashanti and Agnico, etc. all there now alongside us. And just on that, if we were to try and build that portfolio that we have, that 100,000 hectares of prime real estate now, we wouldn't be able to do that, I don't think, because our competitors are companies with far deeper pockets than a little junior explorer.
And let's talk about some of the results, in particular with Chuscal. What have you learned from those?
So we just finished 4 holes. The last hole completed just before Christmas, and the last of the results were put out in early January. They were interesting results. The first hole is quite spectacular. The entire hole, all 450 metres of it, contained gold, which caught us by surprise. We weren't expecting that. In fact, the first 350 metres of the hole graded 0.57 gram per tonne with 5 grams per tonne at the surface. What it told us, and was later consolidated by holes 2, 3 and 4, is that the porphyry mineralisation we see at Chuscal is much, much bigger than everyone thought for the previous 2 decades. It's a much bigger system. And the second part of the story is the system contains vein gold as well. And that's what makes Chuscal so interesting and why everyone was so excited by it. It's a porphyry story, so low-grade mineralisation, but that's been cut by epithermal higher-grade veins. So it's a vein story inside a porphyry story. So we drilled through those massive intercepts of porphyry-related gold, but every now and then we hit these high-grade veins, these epithermal veins, and we took a boost in the grade as we went through those veins. And we hit those in every single hole.
How does Chuscal fit into the overall strategy?
Chuscal is part of the Quinchilla project. So Chuscal's to the south, and then we have Tesorito, which is a near-surface porphyry. It's 2 metres below the surface, and massive intercepts, 300 plus metres at a gram per tonne and things like that from the surface. And they're all anchored to a discovery called Miraflores, and that contains a 500,000 ounce reserve with at $1,400 an ounce. It's an NPV of about 90 million and an internal rate of return of 28%. So from a feasibility perspective, it's borderline interesting, but it doesn't need much. Any sort of a boost from Tesorito or from Chuscal instantly realises that 500,000 ounce reserve as well, sitting at Miraflores. So it's an exciting little parcel. All those projects are within 2 kilometres of each other.
And you also have the Andes project, which is even larger.
That's about 90,000 hectares, but it's all very early stage. And we look forward to getting back to the Andes ground in the second half of this year. But at the moment, we've taken an extensive number of surface samples there, 14,000 surface samples over the last 3 or 4 years. And what's really amazing is 2% of that database is over a gram per tonne. So we know there's an enormous amount of gold in that area, and we look forward to exploring that in H2 of 2020.
So exciting times. What do you think is going to happen over the next 6 months?
Well, first of all, we need to understand this recent drilling data and incorporate that into the significant database we have regionally. I suspect that will generate 3D models and those sorts of things over the next 4 to 6 weeks, and then we'll talk about drilling. The results from Chuscal have given us a strong signal of where the porphyry source of all this gold might be. So that's obviously a very exciting drilling target. But we also want to return to Tesorito. We believe the geology of Tesorito has not been fully understood yet, and hitting 300 plus metres several times of a gram per tonne from surface means there's something really exciting there, and we want to return to that program as well. So in the next 6 months, I would say we'll be drilling subject to funding at those two targets. The other line of work that we want to progress fairly quickly is understanding Miraflores better. Yes, there's an established reserve there, but as we learn more about the structure of Miraflores, we see that there's great opportunities there, not just in the reserve itself and understanding the high-grade distribution within that reserve, but it remains open at depth, so we don't know what happens after 600 metres. And there's also some anomalism to the northeast that no one's ever tested, so we want to go there and test that as well.
Jason, thank you very much.
You're welcome.